Welcome once again to our weekly program, We Connect. My guest today is a very old friend, Prakash Swamy, a veteran journalist of 35 years. He worked here in India for many, many years in all of the leading publications in the South, as well as with India Today, with The Hindu, and with Junior Vigadan. 14 years ago, he took off and went to New York, from where he still continues to operate as a journalist. Today, he's a United Nations correspondent, and he's involved in many, many different things there. And it's about that we're going to talk to Prakash. Prakash, thank you. Welcome back to Chennai. Great to have you here with us. Prakash, why did you make this move in the first place? Let's start there.
Thank you, Jennifer. I feel it's a great privilege and honored to be interviewed by my friend Jennifer, whom I know for at least more than 25 years. I started off my journalism in Chennai.
Yes.
I was a cub reporter in The Hindu in 1978. Then I moved on to be a reporter. Then I went to US to do my master's degree in journalism at the University of Florida in Gainesville during 86 and 88. Thanks to the Rotary Foundation, the scholarship helped me to go and to see the world of journalism in the US. So I came back promptly to The Hindu because I took a 2-year leave of absence, and I continued my career. Then at 1997, I got a call from Mr. Gopal Raju, who was the editor and founder of India Abroad, which is a premier publication of non-residents Indian in the New York area. And he had a crisis because the couple of editors have left, and he said, "Can you take your flight and come tomorrow morning?" I said, "Mr. Raju, I need to have some time to come to New York because I have commitments." At the time, I was the executive editor of Junior Vigadan in Tamil Nadu, and I had my complete 4 years of my tenure. So I thought it's good for me to go abroad, get some experience, exposure in international media, which I always wanted to do. And my dream was to cover the White House, the Capitol Hill, and what we call as Mecca of journalism in the Washington and New York. So I took this opportunity and went to New York in 1997.
Right. But you were probably the first journalist who broke the story about the Rajiv Gandhi assassination. And I think from there your career really did take off.
Yes. I was basically a cub reporter, covering the mortuary, covering the local meetings of Lions Club, Rotary Clubs, and the governors, the usual beat reporter.
The usual beat reporter.
Until 1991, when I got a call that night from Dr. Chokkalingam of Devaki Hospital that Rajiv Gandhi was no more, and he was killed in a bomb blast. Then I called my chief reporter, Mr. Krishna Swamy, to find out what is my assignment. He said, "Just go to bed. We have somebody there. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, you should go to Sriperumbudur, and you take up from the person who's there right away." I went to Sriperumbudur, but they didn't let me in because I'm a journalist. Fortunately, I had Dr. Chandrasekharan, who was a forensic scientist and a well-known forensic scientist and a Padma Bhushan awardee. He saw me and they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "They're not letting me in." He said, "Jump into my car," and he took me inside as his assistant.
As journalists, we always tend to do that. Somebody knows us from somewhere and we slip in, don't you think?
Exactly.
Let me ask here, Prakash. Now, you've been overseas now for 14 years. I was just wondering about the nature of your work in New York City.
Well, in New York, I basically cover the United Nations. That's my beat. I go there every day in the morning, and I attend the spokesman's meeting, which daily briefing of what's going on in the UN. But my special interest is of South Asia. I cover India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, especially Sri Lanka.
So how easy is it for you to be sitting in New York and covering South Asia and this side of the world?
Because I consider UN as a world. Whatever happening everywhere, that's kind of you get it kind of reverberation in the UN.
Right.
So we meet with a lot of diplomats, foreign ministers, and that's a hub. Every day there is something happening in the UN, and that's very easy. Plus I cover the business stories also. I go to Wall Street, I cover the business activities. Of course, business is not all that good in the US, but that's again makes the news.
Right. When you sit outside of India, Prakash, how do you view what's going on in the media in our country?
I think media in India has grown exponentially since I left the country. When I was a cub reporter, a reporter in the 80s, there were hardly about one or two publications in Chennai, maybe about 20 in the whole country. Now I see countless publications and our colleagues are doing extremely well. And in journalism, India stands number one in terms of press freedom, in terms of expressions, and in terms of breaking stories. We are no way inferior to our colleagues in the US or UK or anywhere in terms of the work ethics and in terms of stories. But unfortunately in the US, print media is slowly coming down because of recession, and on the contrary, the print media in India is doing extremely well, and I'm very happy to see that.
Right. You yourself have flirted really with both television as well as the print. Finally, you honed your skills into print. So are you glad for that decision?
Well, I started in television in 1976,
Yes,
77, when Doordarshan was first introduced in Chennai in 1975, I guess. So 2 years later, as a student of a college, I walked into television and said, I want to do a story. They said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to do on youth. So they gave me a chance. I think it's Mr. Perumal who gave me a chance. And I did a story in Doordarshan, and nobody would even know what television was. Then I decided probably print would be better, but I have no regrets because in junior Vigadan, I did a lot of investigative journalism work, so that really kind of was satisfying. But always I try to dabble in television. I did a couple of interviews for Sun TV on TN Station, and also with a couple of other English channels.
Right. Whilst you're sitting in New York, are you able to get a bird's eye view about what the media is actually up to here in India? Or is all of your information mainly from the internet, and are you still in touch with people here?
Oh yeah, I'm in touch with most of my colleagues in India, Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai. They keep calling me because mostly what's happening is that how I get in touch with them is if some breaking story happened in the US, civil nuclear deal or 9/11 or Prime Minister visit, I get a phone call from a lot of my colleagues in television and print media to ask me to report for them, either give a soundbite or do a telephone interview. That way I'm in touch with my colleagues, and so it doesn't stop with that. After that they call me, hey, what's happening? And when they come to New York, they come and stay with me, I take them out. That way I get an idea of what's going on here, and I'm always in touch with my colleagues, though I would like to be in touch with many more of my friends, but at least I'm in contact with them.
Of course, Prakash, the world is such a small place these days, is it not?
Absolutely.
Right. Do you ever think that you might want to return to India and get back into mainstream journalism in our country?
Well, I've completed about 35 years of journalism.
Do you think you've had enough?
I don't think I'm capable enough to compete with my younger colleagues who are doing a much better job in India in both print and television media. I'm slowly branching off into teaching. I'm on the board of directors of the Indian Institute of Journalism and New Media in Bangalore, which is one of the premier journalism institutes connected with the Columbia University.
Right.
They share the syllabus, so I go and teach maybe once in a year a couple of courses. So probably I plan to come back to India in 2-3 years.
At some point of time.
Right. And then take up some kind of teaching or mentoring students.
Okay.
Rather than actively involved in the...
Right. And for the past 14 years, he's been living in New York. He's here to talk to us about his experiences of what it means to be a journalist in other parts of the world. Prakash, you have been very interestingly moved into also being a judge of the Emmy shows. Now, I know that you're the only Indian who ever, actually made that grade. Let's talk about that now.
Yeah, I was actually in touch with the mainstream American media. Because I'm part of the Foreign Press Center. I met somebody who was a very senior television journalist, and he was telling me that the Emmys are looking for a multiculturalism. Because nowadays US is full of multicultural.
That's right.
They want people from different religion, different race, different country to be part of the show. So he asked me, would he be interested in joining Emmy, first as a member of the New York Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. I said, I'd love to do. Then he sponsored my name because you ought to be recommended by a member to join as a member of the association. Then I joined. After a couple of months, he called me and said, do you have any experience in television? I said, no. And I have only a print. And they said, in that case, we want to consider you as a judge. Please give me a resume. So I gave it, and I've been judging the Emmys for the past 4 years. And I do a lot of, in different levels, they ask me to judge the television programs which ultimately end up getting the Emmy Awards.
Right. Is it interesting to do that kind of thing for you?
Absolutely.
How long does it involve? How much time gets taken?
When they tell me that the Emmy judging is about 10 o'clock in the morning, when I go there, I have to sign a confidential note. Like I'm not supposed to reveal what are the programs I'm seeing, who's there, how much grades I'm giving. Absolutely, it's confidential. Then they give me all the complete, whatever for the day, 2-3 hours. Then there's a whole bunch of questionnaire, about 100 questions. I had to rate the interviewers, the composer, the talk, the mannerism, the background, the sound, the color, everything you name it, my opinion, I had to give it. And ultimately it goes a different level. I judge the junior most level, I judge the final level, which gets the award.
Right. How many judges on the panel?
They're normally more than 2.
Okay.
But we're not supposed to discuss with each other about our verdict.
Right. So you're really saying here that in no way are any of these awards ever really fixed?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay. Your work with the United Nations, it's quite up your street, isn't it? Because you do like the whole area of diplomacy and foreign relations. Is this the right thing you feel for Prakash Swamy to be doing?
Well, I was doing basically Indian politics when I was in India.
Right.
Political parties. I was a hardcore political journalist.
Indeed.
Even attacked by some of the politicians. For
I know that, Prakash.
And
yes.
I was mentioned in the Committee to Protect Journalists as a guy who was being knocked down. But the kind of journalism I'm doing now is, I met with a lot of heads of states. For example, when in 2000, when General Musharraf came to UN, I stopped him and asked a question. He said, everything except Kashmir. I said, everything, not everything, only Kashmir.
Right.
So I had a quote from him about Kashmir. And I get a chance to meet all the world leaders, whether big or small or different countries. That way I get an understanding what's going on in the world.
Yeah, that's a whole fascination in itself for people who are journalists, the kind of people one ends up meeting. You brush shoulders with world leaders, up close and personal. What are they like?
Absolutely. For example, when you go to the delegates dining lounge in the UN, you'll be surrounded by prime ministers and presidents. I mean, the journalists will be there. So you go and talk to them. Sometimes our own foreign minister who sits with me, shares a lunch with me, he'll be giving a lot of inside information which may not be available to other journalists. So this kind of experience helps me a lot to know. I developed friendship with the president of Guyana, Mr. Bharat Jagdev, who happens to be an Indian origin.
Right.
And he asked me, I want to come to Chennai because I realized my grandmother is from Chennai. Can you help me? My other good friend is Kamala Prasad, who has become the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. She's of Indian origin. So this experience really helps me a lot.
Right. You're involved with teaching and being with this institute in Bangalore. As you sit and look in on what's happening, are you entirely satisfied with the sort of education we are getting now in India in terms of the media and media education specifically?
I think it's really improved a lot. The first time I went to the Madras University in 80s, just to know, we had the journalism in Britain in 1800s. Now that's totally changed.
Yes, that's right.
In fact, I think we had a very good professor called Professor Josephine in Madras University.
Just retired recently.
Just retired, and she always used to say, Prakash, I wish we should change the syllabus. And when I became the Senate member of the Madras University, thanks to Governor Channa Reddy, my first question at the Senate was, please change the journalism curriculum, and they did change. And of course, now it's very good. We have fantastic universities, colleges, private universities, which are really Asian College Journalism, MOP Vaishnava. They're doing a good job.
Right. Prakash, however, there is something to be said for experience when it comes to journalism. Do you believe that a student can be taught to be a good journalist, or is it just the theory that shows a young person the way to go, the way to write a story, the way to report? At the end of the day, do you not believe that the experience that one brings to the table plays a large part in your success?
Absolutely. I did my journalism in India before joining the Hindu, but I was understudy to somebody in the Hindu. Mr. Parsardi was a police reporter. So he took me to police area and said, this is what is a crime, this is what is mortuary, this is what is murder, this is homicide. So I learned everything from him. So you need to have an understudy. For example, in political reporting, I was working at Giant of the Hindu. You need somebody to teach you the basic stuffs in journalism. that really helps you a lot. But education is important to know at least the working knowledge of the journalism.
Right. It's important for me to now ask you your views on press freedom, the way it exists in our country, the way it exists in other countries. And you, with your experience, know how it does there, how there is such a curbing of press freedom in many parts of the world today. What's your opinion about this, Prakash?
Yeah, in India we have a lot of press freedom. In fact, I'm very proud to say I was in the Foreign Press Center in Washington a couple of months ago, maybe last month. And my friends called me and said, you know, the Indian media is ripping the politicians apart, exposing the corruption. And I don't think even the television or the print media in the US would be capable of doing that. And they were so happy. And I said, I echoed the sentiment and said, press in India is absolutely fearless. They are really the job up to the mark, and whenever there's wrong, they don't mind. Maybe there may be some flaws. I mean, I'm not saying everything is perfect,
right,
but the way in which the politicians are getting exposed, the wrongdoers, whistleblowers, I think the Indian television and the print media are doing an excellent job compared to even some of the developing nations.
Right. When you and I started in journalism around the same time, there were so few of us probably, and therefore people tended not to quite speak out. Now you have the confidence of numbers and you have the strength in numbers. So would you think that you can attribute that one quality also and that one factor to the fact that there's this outspokenness in the press now? People come out, say what they want. Journalists are quite fearless, as you yourself said, and I completely agree with that. Is it because there are so many more people around now?
Yes, we have so many television channels. And I remember editor of the Indian news agency saying, previously 20 years ago, we used to start filing stories at 10 o'clock in the night to catch the morning edition,
yes,
and 8 o'clock in the night to catch the evening edition. Now the news agencies have to file stories every 10 minutes.
Oh.
That's the kind of stories. Then because of the television and the updates of news, there are more journalists, more younger journalists. Same time, I feel they should do their homework properly, because sometimes I feel the younger journalists have not done the homework before they go for the interview. Like you and I, we study completely the background before we go and talk to them. But sometimes I find that is not happening. And the side of politicians, some of the politicians complain that the journalists come and ask them questions which are totally irrelevant.
But of course, politicians don't like any questions from any journalist that are uncomfortable questions. And we have to agree on that. They just don't want it. They're fine when you're asking them something that's whatever they're doing. But the minute it gets a bit rough under the collar, then they don't want it. They don't want us. And in the Indian context, we are constantly being blamed for everything that happens. The minute there's a problem, it's the press that's misquoted it. It's the press that's changed the way people think. Don't you think that's our responsibility?
Yeah, my question, the previous answer is, for example, I can't go and ask about a foreign relations to commerce minister.
True.
I can't go and ask about health to a industry minister. This is what some of the journalists are doing, and that is what they are.
Yeah, it should be relevant, right?
Relevant,
yes.
Not about the things. But about the second point you mentioned, yes, you're right. The media is definitely have to tune itself to the current realities of life.
Prakash, we hear many times of journalists who actually kind of get involved in politics one way or the other, whether because they want to or because they don't want to is beside the point. What's your opinion about something like this?
I remember my guru or my senior colleagues were telling me, politics is like a fire for a journalist. You can't be too close, you can't be too far.
True.
You got to be in the correct position. But unfortunately, sometimes journalists get sucked into politics for various reasons. And I think that's not professional, because we write about issues. We don't criticize people because I don't like them. It's about issues. But when you become very close to somebody, you'll probably get blinded that you don't want to criticize them.
It's hard probably to
Yes.
step back to be neutral, I guess.
Yes. I would like to say the friendship with the politician should be something like what a judge does. Judge never goes out and socializes, but they still have their own friend circle so that they have been treated as impartial. Well, we can't go to that level, but at least we can be fair enough not to become too close to a politician.
Right. So you say you better remain a professional journalist or be a politician. You can't be both.
Absolutely right.
Right. When you sit in New York and in America, outside of India, Do you find that there is an interest in what's going on in India amongst Indians who are living there, NRIs for instance?
Absolutely. They always try to find out what's going on in India. Because
Why would they want to? They are sitting the other side of the world.
well, but basically, we always hear that absence makes hearts grow fonder. So when you go out of India, you become much more patriotic.
Yes, more
you get
Indian.
involved. And I find a lot of demonstrations in New York, and I ask them, why are you doing it? Oh, no, we want to be part of it. Probably they think that, they still want to contribute something, and they are very much in touch because they keep coming here twice a year or once a year. So there's always a connection between the NRIs and Indians, and India is very much alive.
Right. Having said that, you're also involved with the Tamil Association in New York. Perhaps it's the right time to ask you about that part of your activities.
I'm the president of the New York Tamil Association, which is one of the oldest Tamil associations in US.
Not politically affiliated at all.
We are absolutely apolitical. We are above religion, above caste, above community, above everything. We are united only by Tamil. We give chance to a lot of youngsters. For example, the kids who are born in the US, they can't speak Tamil. We try to teach them Tamil. We try to help arrange the teachers to teach them dance, music, violin, veena, all these instruments, so that they are culturally groomed. I mean, after all, we are Indians. I mean, I can't change my color.
Yes.
Though I live in US, I'm still an Indian by heart, by my color, by my culture. So we try to work with the Tamil community, and we are above politics, and we do a lot of community work. For example, one thing is important is, many times we feel that when we want to do a charity, we send money back home. But I told them, you need to feed the poor in the US, because we make money in the US, we pay taxes in the US, so we go to a church in Staten Island every year during Tamil New Year's Day. We feed about 200 homeless, poor in the US, in New York, which is a sumptuous meal once a year, and is very happy to see that they are very glad that the Indians who are coming here to US are richer, helping them.
Right. I understand that there are quite a lot of Indians in the United States who are now, we've had the reverse brain drain, as it were, of lots of Indians coming back to India. Is that still going on, Prakash? What's the reality?
We have about 2.3 million Indians in the US totally. And there's a statistics which says every fourth doctor is an Indian, and every fifth IT man is an Indian. But things are changing. The US economy has taken a heavy beating, and almost kind of, it's in a bad shape. According to a survey, more than 200,000 Indians, particularly in IT, who are green card holders and US citizens, may move back to India to take up positions. If that happens, in fact, the US senators and congressmen have already started talking about it in the public forum. If that happens, that's going to be a big problem to the US, because that's going to take away the cream of the intelligentsia from the US business and profession. Because
so many Indians who've gone abroad have really made a mark for themselves.
Absolutely.
And probably are now thinking of coming back to India and contributing. And of course, it's a known fact that India is going to be a leader in Asia for sure. We're on par with China. Now, let me just quickly ask, you've been doing some work in South America, so that side of the world. Now, what exactly are you up to there?
Well, I was always been fascinated by South America.
Beautiful country.
And the Caribbean nations.
Never been there.
And I traveled to Guyana, Trinidad, Grenada. I went to a very unknown country called Grenada just to see how the people and life. And when I went to Guyana, the president of Guyana asked me, what do you want to see in my country? I said, I heard something like a Madras settlement. I wanted to go. Then he put me in a car and his personal secretary and sent me to a place. It's a very habitant. They moved to Guyana about 150 years ago from Tamil Nadu, and they can't speak Tamil, but they have a temple, which is Mariamman temple, and they have the Mariamman Thalatu written in English, and they're reading out the praise of God in Tamil written in English. And they came and told me, you're from Tamil Nadu, get me a CD, I want to listen to the songs. So it's very pathetic to see. Then I'm writing a story which is called Tamile Maranda Tamilargal, Tamils who don't know Tamils, the kind of book I'm doing, which is about the immigration from a country to these countries about 150 years ago.
Right.
So very interesting to see how people and the lifestyle in this country.
So people who are living abroad, who are originally from Tamil Nadu, are really wanting to learn about their roots. That's the message.
Getting back to the roots. Particularly the Caribbean countries and the South American countries. Indians who are there.
Okay. Are they in fact interested in the politics of our country?
They're not very much interested in politics, but they come here on a pilgrimage, and they always say like a homecoming. They come, I know many of my friends, Caribbean Indians, the moment they get off the plane, they kiss the ground because there's so much they love a country very much. But there are two Indian origin heads of state in Caribbean, one is Guyana, other Trinidad, they're both Indian origins.
Right. Well, Prakash, it's been an absolute joy to have you here. Thank you for you coming home the way you do twice a year, and just keep coming back, and perhaps one day you might decide to just get home for good, perhaps 2 or 3 years down the road. I really want to thank you very much.
Jennifer, it's so pleasure talking to you, and I feel very honored. My senior colleague interviewing me and spending time with me.
Thank you very much. Well, that's all we have time for here on WeConnect. But don't forget to join us every single Saturday night at 9:30. Remember that on WeConnect, you'll meet people who are interesting, people who always have a fascinating story to tell me. And of course, I want to share that story with you. So until the next time, you take care and bye for now.